Welcome back to Top Flight Football TV for another episode with my colleague Oğuz Suvay, and our topic, of course, Turkish football. The Turkish national team have beaten Croatia in an interesting game, and we're going to start our stream by talking about that. So I want to hand it off to you, Oğuz. How did you find Turkey's performance against Croatia, the 1-0 win?
I thought I was watching Italy defend in those last 20, 25, 30 minutes, to be honest. Um, it's I haven't been obviously I wake up for every game for Gala and for the Turkish national team as well. I try to wake up and watch them. Lately, as you know, it's been pretty dry to watch the Turkish national team. But I knew this was an away game. This was important, especially losing points to Armenia at home. It was a must win, and I thought if we won, that was going to get us over the line. Obviously, with another game in hand that we have to play. Uh, but I was really surprised, really happy, especially with the change of coach, with the fresh breath of air into the players. It was really, really good that we not only scored, but then also defended
Yeah,
well
so what I
against
mean,
Croatia as well. These are, you know, world class teams.
just to give an update, Turkey had a new coach just before this game. We had part ways with our previous coach, Stefan Kuntz. I think Turkey was his first and only
Yes.
managing job, which is weird. Someone who's never managed a professional team of adults was the Turkish national team's manager for over a year. Um, But the Turkish Federation made an interesting choice, man. They went for Vincenzo Montella, and I was very skeptical, until I saw them play
Yes.
against Croatia. I was extremely skeptical. And in fact, I'll tell you this, man. When I saw the lineup, I thought to myself, I don't even want to watch this game. I thought, I did not think that things would turn out the way they did, but I have to give it to Montella. I have to give it to Montella
Yeah.
because it's not just about the win. I mean, you can beat Croatia, you can lose to Croatia. That's both very normal. But what I saw on the pitch, the game, and like the tactics, I think it's been
Yeah.
like, I'm not even exaggerating. I think it's been like at least 10 years since I've seen a Turkish national team playing, you know, a proper game where everybody knows what they're doing, where everybody knows what the game plan is, and everybody executes it perfectly. This game was definitely an execution of tactics, where Turkey
Yeah.
just tactically removed Croatia's, abilities off the field. So that was extremely, extremely interesting for me to see. What are your thoughts on Vincenzo Montella, man? I mean, he was the coach of Adana Demirspor now after a successful run there. He's with the Turkish national team. What do you think?
Yeah, Montello made a very interesting effect on the Turkish league with Adana Demirspor. As you know, I'm sure we'll talk about them as well in the future. Um, they really stamped their mark on the Turkish league in the last, 3, 4 years that they've been in the league. You look at his career. He's got big teams there. He's got Roma. He's got Fiorentina. He's got Milan. He's got Sevilla, and then after Fiorentina in I think 2019, he comes to Adana to Turkey, and he's played 78 games in the league, and he's won 40 of them, and losing 20 of them, and then drawing 18. Now, obviously, the Turkish Football Federation saw this. Although I think their preference was a Turkish coach after having a disappointment with an international coach. Montella's been in the league, unlike Stefan Kuntz, who I think was an assistant most of his time. He knew the league. He knew the quality of the players. He knew his own players because he called a few players from Adana as well, and he made an impact. And you usually see this. The first game, I don't believe it's a real indication of how good of a coach he is, but when you see coaches come on board and new players, the players start playing with the new coach, there's always that first motivation, and that happening to be against Croatia away, I think really it came in handy for the Turkish national team, and I think it's promising. It's good to see that we have someone who is, not an expert, but he's got eyes on the league. He's a good coach. He's got a good positive attitude, and yeah, I'd love to see him win the next game and qualify for the Euros in Germany.
Yeah, man. Listen, I was very surprised. Again, I'll say with Montella. Again, I agree. The first game is never an indication, but what a first game! It's like I said again. For me, it's not about the result. It's not about the win. It's not about the fact that we are now 99% going to the Euros.
Yeah,
It's that in such a short period of time, he was very clearly able to, pass the message on to the players of what he wants them to be playing. You know, whether he ends up being successful or not, time will show. But we've seen that he's got an idea of a game, and it worked against Croatia, which is, I mean, they were World Cup finalists. Croatia, they're an A-grade top level team. So,
exactly.
like I remember when Turkey beat France right off the back of France winning the World Cup when Şenol Güneş was the coach, which was also another good game, good performance. But again, it was I didn't see the light I saw in this team and that team, even though they beat a much bigger team off the back of a much bigger success. So for the first time, man, I'm actually very excited for the Turkish national team in a long, long time because you know how it is in Turkey with the national team. There's a big, big, big pool of players, and regardless of who gets called up, who gets pulled into that squad, uh, you know, fans are upset and angry about, the people that aren't added in. They're like, oh, why isn't he and why isn't he? And when we look at Montella's, and I want to bring that subject there a bit, when we look at Montella's decisions on who he played, he didn't play Orkun Kökçü, who's a very crucial player, in my opinion. He played Samet Akaydın, who was, his old student from Adana, but he's not really playing in Fener. He has played like 4 or 5 games this year, to be fair. It's not like he's not playing at all. But, amongst defenders like Çağlar, Söyüncü, Merih Demiral, Ozan Kabak, you go and you choose Samet Akaydın. That's a risky move if it doesn't play out, well. It's something very easy to criticize. But
Yeah.
Samet played very well, and then Ismail Yüksek got the debut in the national team. I think he was the best player in that game. So he's really made some touches. He didn't go for the big names. He didn't say, okay, you're playing for Atletico Madrid. Okay, you're playing in Europe, so you get to be on the starting 11. No, he said, listen, man, for me, it's about your current performance and what you can give me. I don't care where you're playing. And that's a very different approach than all the previous coaches, in recent years. And I think that is definitely the correct approach. What's your opinion on, the squad he selected and the 11 he came out with?
Yeah, like you said, usually we have at least half of the team or more playing in different leagues, in different teams, different environments, different conditions. So to see that a majority of the actual team being from the Turkish Superlig, I think that made a really big difference. And Ismail, Samet, these guys all played very well. You look at the duo with Abdul Kerim, with the centre back duo, and they played really well. And the stats were crazy about how well they performed. I think Abdul Kerim Bardakçı was chosen player of the game. Being a Galatasaray fan, this is really good news for me, and I'm sure for as well for everyone else. And yeah, I think it's time that we, sort of look into those alternative players because it's not easy wearing the national team's jersey. It's something that everyone would dream about. And when you put players that have been there for years and they're not as passionate about it anymore, and you can see that on the pitch. And I think especially players that are playing in the Turkish Superlig playing together is going to be much better in terms of gelling the team together with especially with the new players coming in and going forward. And I think we're only one game away, or even a point away, because when you look at the table, I think Armenia is on. They're 6 points behind us, and just looks at one more point, and then Turkey has made it. Whether it's going to be first or second, we will see that. But it's promising. It's good that they will be going hopefully to Euros in Germany, where you know what the population of Turkish people in Germany is like.
Yeah, man, definitely. Very good point. The population of Turkish people in Germany and a Euros in Germany would be like Germany and Turkey would be hosting that. I think Turkish fans would be a lot louder than even German fans and, more packed, in numbers. But yeah, we've got the group
Yeah,
up
and
with
maybe
us
who
now.
knows? Maybe we'll be one of those fans.
Yeah, man, hopefully, if people follow, subscribe, comment, tell us to do it, we can. We'd love to. And we pulled up the, group's
Yep,
rankings. So
yep,
Turkey's first place with a game in hand. So Croatia, if they win, they're, one game extra at hand. Then it's going to be 13-13. And it's going to be between Turkey and Croatia,
yep,
obviously, who's going to be first place. And interestingly enough, if Turkey finishes first place in this group, it is extremely, extremely likely that we're going to be entering the Euros from the second pot, the second group, meaning we won't be matching with like, France
yes,
and Spain in the same group. So we'll be out of that second pot. And then 3 and 4 would be, easier opponents, hopefully. So this is actually for a country, that's been doing very bad, to be honest, in football, in national level football, and over the years, basically since Euro 2008, when, we had a successful run. We've just been
yep.
lost since the Euro 2008. And then we're coming back now, and we're coming back strong. We're coming back hopeful. If it does happen, what do you feel like our chances would be in that group in that championship, man? Just before you pick up,
It's
next
great
two
to see
games,
that.
Latvia and we got Latvia and Wales. Can you give me what are you expecting in those games as well?
I was actually surprised that Latvia bet Armenia 2-0, because I don't think they had a game. They had a point before that game, and for them to beat Armenia obviously did us a favor as well, because now Armenia is still 6 points behind us. So it's really about who's going to be first and who's going to be second out of Turkey and Croatia. Uh, Unfortunately, of late, Turkey coming out of the groups or qualifying for a World Cup or a Euros is always been nail biting. It's like the last game, it's the last minute. Someone's got to take a free kick. If we score, we go. If we don't score, we're done. Either Selçuk scores or something happens. It's always this last minute tension for the Turkish national team, especially for me. And I'm thinking, man, like, surely the league is good enough quality. Surely we have good enough players to turn up, to wear the jersey. And it doesn't matter what part of the country you're from or what team you played for, to really go out and put your heart out and put your passion in to the game, right? But to see that, hopefully, um, that we have actually made it to the Euros now, and we don't lose our the game coming up, and then leave it to the last game again, and then be 2-0 down, 10 minutes to go, and then somehow score 3 goals and then make it to the final. So let's just see how that goes. That's always been the case for me. Hopefully, this is not the time for that, and we just qualify, and we just still do we finish first or second.
Yeah, I hear you, man. So you're saying you've had enough amount of bad experiences in the past to get excited too soon, which makes a lot of sense. Which makes a lot of sense. But and I'm not one to get
Yes, definitely.
pass quick judgment, especially in football, especially for a coach. But I mean, that Croatia game really gave me hope, man, in terms of what Vincenzo Montella wants to do. Because obviously it's a national team. You can't transfer anybody in, you know. It's what you got. You got a group of players and it's these players. It's a business of what can you make with these ingredients, you know? You can't go to the shop and buy new ingredients. And with the limited ingredients at hand, he
That's right.
very short time. He did good, man. It was very nice to see that, and I think with what he's brought in, and with the hype of beating Croatia, and with the also the hype of if we finished first, we'll be in the second pot uh, for the for the eliminations. So I think we'll win both games easily. And with Turkey, it's always been, it's always been, it's much harder for us to beat the smaller clubs than it is the bigger clubs. But I think this time, with this type of coach,
Yes, definitely.
we're not gonna have a hard time beating teams that are just not, at our level. And with that being said, I want to put a pin on the national team. We'll be back with, more updates about Turkiye after their game against Latvia in Wales, hopefully finishing the group leaders. And I want to move on to the Trendyol Superlig, which is, always our main topic. It's very soon. It's just
Mm.
starting. And already there's so much to talk about and there's so much going on. So today I want to bring in Besiktas first. I want to talk about Besiktas. And because we're in a national break, it's actually a good time for us to do a nice
Yeah.
recap of what's happened so far, up until this national break. And Besiktas are in chaos, man. I'll tell you that. Besiktas are in chaos. They've lost their coach, Şenol Güneş. He's quit.
Yeah.
And before moving on any further about Besiktas, as a
Yeah.
fan also of the club, I want to pay my respects to Şenol Güneş. First off, as a fan, I want to say thank you. And it's very heartbreaking to see him leave. It's very heartbreaking to see him leave the way he left. And
What are you thanking
I
him
have,
for?
and exactly, I have the utmost respect for what he's done, and it's exactly what I'm thanking him for. Since his arrival, it was the first time ever he got criticized by the fans. Was the tragic game against Lugano in the Europa Conference League, and the fans went up with some chants saying, "Hoca bu takım neden oynamıyor?" Which would translate into, "Tell us why this team isn't playing, coach." And after that game, he basically quit because since this season started, things haven't been going well. And I feel like a majority of Besiktas fans are on the same page as me when I say it wasn't the coach's fault, but it also wasn't something he could fix. And he realized that and he did the right thing. He left. So I want to thank him for his service. Man, he's a legendary coach for us. He was with
Yeah.
us before two championships, unbeaten in the Champions League group stages, leader in the Champions League group stages. Very, very good runs with Besiktas, Ganesh, but this second term didn't turn out as we wanted. But what's next for Besiktas now? Now Besiktas are in chaos, no coach. Chairman is going to hold elections, so there's going to be new people coming out saying, we want to run the club, we want to be in charge of everything, and the fans want the chairman out. The chairman is thinking about going back into the elections again, and this is where I want to throw it to you, man. So, what do you think about the Besiktas chairman's decision to hold elections and run as a candidate again after everything that's happened?
I think it's too late. He's left it too late. It should have happened earlier. Um, Look, Besiktas is one of the biggest teams in Turkey, right? And as good as it is for them to be not doing well in the league, it's good for me because I'm obviously a Gala fan. It's also sad to see the position they're in now. When you look at last year, especially the second half of last year, and how Besiktas performed, it was really promising. Towards the end, they bet Galatasaray, they bet Fenerbahce, scoring 3, 4 goals. So everyone thought, yes, okay, Gala's got a good team, Fener's got to be obviously competitive, but you've got Besiktas to worry about come this season. And we didn't see that through the transfer season. Maybe they thought they had good players. Maybe they thought, this team was going to be enough. But when you go Galatasaray and Fenerbahce literally competing in signing who can sign the biggest star or the bigger player, seeing Besiktas not do much, it didn't really help anyone because they needed that. They needed that to be competitive. They needed that to be playing against them when the time comes and Gala and Besiktas comes, which is going to happen soon. They will need those players. Now, I thought the president of Besiktas is not credible, right? I don't think anyone really takes him seriously. And this is not me just coming from a fan of another team. I'm thinking about the Besiktas supporters as well. Şenol Güneş has done well. Again, even though it took him a while to put the team together towards the end of the year, he did it very well, like I said, and he's got a lot of credit with the team, with the actual fans, with the players. But obviously, when top down doesn't go well, then the coach is not going to work out as well. I think, as well as losing to Lugano 3-2, there's the whole scene about the president of Turkish football being at the stadium, the fans pretty much, blasting him, swearing at him, chanting against him, and him being there and just copying it for the first 45 minutes. And I think it wasn't even the first 45 minutes when he got up, he did a hand gesture towards the president, and then he left saying, you're causing this, you're making them talk up and scream against me. This was massive for obviously news in general, for the football, but also for the fans who saw this and reacted to it, saying, how can he or how can anyone point fingers at Besiktas's president? Now, yes, they don't take.
It wasn't actually at the president. The fans
Maybe
said,
Ahmet
"How can
Nur
anyone
Çebi's
point fingers at
as serious.
Besiktas?"
That's what I'm saying. And it doesn't matter how much you dislike your president or whoever it is that's sitting in that seat. The Besiktas supporters said, you can't point fingers at us, and you can't let anyone point fingers at us. So the fact that the president was unreactive, should I say, to the football president, and then him leaving and looking upset, that also just fast forward the reaction that they already had to the president. They pushed him, saying they even stayed back in the stadium, I believe, for another hour or so, just protesting, telling them to leave. This is something we see in Turkish football. Is it a good thing? Probably, because it tells the club owners or the presidents that it's really the fans who can control what's going to happen. Yes, you might get away with it for 6 months, a year, but if your coach isn't doing well, if your president isn't doing well, if you're not getting what you want as a supporter, you can really put the pressure on and remove the president and remove the coach if necessary. So it was interesting to see. I think there's a lot to unfold here, but like you said, this happening within the national break, just before the national break, really helped Besiktas to sort of reconciliate and come together again. Hopefully,
Well,
before it's too late.
yeah, well, we'll see if this national break is going to be good for Besiktas or if everything's just going to get extremely chaotic after the national break because there's a big game coming, which I'm going to get to. But, I want to move on with a little bit about, now that Şenol Güneş is
Yep.
gone, obviously, Besiktas is a big club. There's somebody in charge, and the man in charge is not a is a familiar face. Burak Yılmaz is now the interim manager for Besiktas. He was the assistant manager to Şenol Güneş, and after Şenol Güneş quit, actually Montella, we were just talking about him. Montella wanted Burak Yılmaz on the national team as his assistant manager, but Burak said, he didn't want to leave Besiktas in a situation like this, and the chairman, who's about to hold elections in a month or two, has said, yeah, Burak can be the manager, me in during this duration, and I don't know about Burak. Is he gonna? He Besiktas played their first game under Burak last week against Istanbulspor, and I'll tell you, man, like Istanbulspor. I'll talk about Istanbulspor. Istanbulspor are the weakest club, in the league by far up until now. They're really gonna have a hard time
Yes.
competing, Istanbulspor and Besiktas. Although we won, it wasn't a satisfying game, you know. But Burak is there, and Burak said after the game actually that this game it was important to show reaction. It wasn't important that we played good or bad. It was important that we won, and that he was going to start concentrating on what we're going to be playing during this national break. And he's got no experience, man. Like he's barely got experience as an assistant coach. He's got like 3 months experience as an assistant coach, let alone being a coach. So, what do you think is going to happen there?
Look, Burak Yılmaz obviously is a big player. He was a big player for um, for Turks in general because he did well in the National League. He played for Galatasaray. He did well there. Played for Besiktas. He did well there. Um, he played for Trabzonspor. He did well there. I think he even played for Fenerbahce and he did well there. So Burak Yılmaz definitely knows the football in Turkey. He knows the league. He knows the players. He knows the attitude. He knows how to motivate because he was also a passionate player and you'd see him lead. He was the captain for Galat at one stage as well. So he knows how to motivate players and he knows how to play the game, right? But does this automatically means that he also can coach the team? I think the fans, yes, they like Burak, they love him. He feels, the last few statements that he's made, how he feels that he's a part of the Beşiktaş cause and the team, and the fans who have reacted to that. He's won his game against Istanbul, regardless of what the opponent is like. Beating them 2-0. It was a win at the end of the day. I don't think Burak Yılmaz is going to stay for the rest of the season unless something, happens and maybe Galatasaray away. It's not going to be something that the fans are going to be happy about because he has no credit with the fans in terms of coaching. As soon as things go south, I think they'll be asking for his head as well.
Yes, just before I move on from Besiktas, I just want to ask you one thing. Two things actually. I'll comment on and I'll let you comment first, and then I'll pick up and end it there. Who are your candidates for Besiktas? Who would you think? Who do you think would be a good candidate? And what do you think our Besiktas's chances are in turning things around this season, if any?
Yeah. So basically, what we've seen in the past with the international coaches coming in, especially mid-season, especially after 7, 8, 10 weeks have passed, it hasn't really been successful. By the time they try to impose their own tactics and own sort of system, and if definitely, especially if they're not familiar with the Turkish league, I think it's going to be a hard challenge for them to come in and try to make a difference. Because again, it's a new coach, someone that doesn't know the team well. They're not going to have enough credit from the fans. I think what Besiktas need is something that is going to win the fans back. That's what they need to do. They need to win the fans back with a credible, likable coach. There's always options. You've got different options within the league who have made a difference in the teams they've coached, but you've also got, I think the biggest person for the job is going to be Sergei Yalçın. The reason why we say Sergei Yalçın is because he's a legend at the club. He did very well last time he was coaching them. He's got credit with the fans. Now, if I was the president of the coach or if I was running the administration, I would put Sergei back in there just to, give the fans back what they want. They want someone who is from the team, who knows the team well, who can play the players, who can sort of mediate between the fans, the players, and the actual admin, the committee. So I think that's going to be the biggest name for the job. Again, will they get him? He's very hot and cold. He's hard to get a control of. He's slippery, Sergen. So let's see how it goes. What do you think?
So yeah, I mean, the obvious choice is definitely Sergen. I'll start by saying that. But the problem there, and the problem with any other coach, is now you've got a chairman who's leaving. Well, he's gonna go into elections. He believes he's gonna get reelected. I don't, but we'll see. But the problem is any coach you go to, and when you tell them, hey man, I'm looking for a coach, let's sign a deal for Besiktas, they're gonna tell you, you win the elections first and then come back to me, And any coach who signs with this current chairman right now is there for the money. They're not there for any of the right intentions. So you can't sign anyone until elections. Elections are 2 months away, and I agree that Sergen is the guy to turn things around, but Sergen won't be coming for another 2 months at least. So it's not only because of this chairman and his faulty transfers for the last 3 years that we've lost this year's championship, but we're going to lose our chance of, coming back into the race maybe, simply because he's not leaving, and he's trying to go for elections and he's doing it 2 months later and this and that. But this is all lost for the club. It's time lost. It's a duration without a proper coach. It's a duration where even the players know, like, they're not going to be mentally there, man, because they're going to be thinking, who's our new coach going to be? There's definitely going to be a new coach coming. And with that being said, I feel like Besiktas has not only fallen out of the race, but they've fallen out of the race. That's one, because of the chairman. Now they're losing their shot at being able to re-enter the race again because of this same chairman. And as long as we keep doing these lives with you, which we will, you're going to hear me talking about this chairman a lot, because he's taken so much from the club, so much. It's not just this year, so much more. But I want to put a pin there in Besiktas and move on to Galatasaray.
Yeah.
Galatasaray, top flight Galatasaray, man.
Mhm.
They are flying. Although they're not leaders in the league, perfectly doing well in Europe, doing great in the
Yeah.
league, and most importantly, they are
It's only a
adding to
matter
their
of time.
game every week. They're adding to that game. They're getting better, and better. So let's start by talking about Galatasaray from the Antalyaspor game.
Yeah, again, what a win against Manchester away. You'd think coming back to the league, playing with Antalyaspor, uh, was going to be, a hard game, and it always is. Playing away in Antalya, I think it's one of the hardest away games in the league. And the way they played, was it the best game they played? No. Did they get to win? Yes. What I'm really liking about what's happening with the team is that the new players are now they're gelling in. We've got Zaha playing more. We've got Tete coming in. We've got Davinson Sanchez mentioned as the weeks go by, and this, especially this break with mostly for Ndombele, I'm hopeful about. He didn't go to the national team. I think Ziyech did, but he's injured, so he won't be playing. Then you have, obviously the players like Kerem and so forth who are already doing well, as we saw again in the national team against Croatia. I think it's promising. I think they have to hit the ground running just after this break, playing Besiktas at home, and then Manchester United after that. But before they're going to play Bayern Munich after Besiktas. It's going to be hard for them to keep this pace. But I said this before. I said it was going to be hard going in just after the Copenhagen game. They had, I think, 6 or 7 games back to back, and they did well. They've only drew to Copenhagen, and they've won everything else. So really good, doing really good there with what they've got, with the conditions they have, with the players not coming together as yet. But one point I want to make is about Davinson Sanchez, who actually within his first game took the jersey off Victor Nelson, and now he's the man for the job. Even though we thought Nelson was irreplaceable, especially drawing up with Abdul Kerim at the back. Looks like Nelson's being benched at the moment, and I'm not sure if he's
Yeah,
happy about that.
I
What do
wanna
you
kind
think?
of jump in there, man. That's so you said a lot of. I heard the name Sanchez quite a few times in your words, and so
Yes.
Victor Nelson is angry. Oh, that's something we got to talk about. That seems to be the only problem in Galatasaray right now is that Victor Nelson is angry, and maybe rightfully so,
Yeah.
because what I'm seeing, I mean, you guys have already forgotten about him, replaced him with Sanchez in a matter of 2 games. Let's bring Victor Nelson's statements. He had some nice statements to say. Let's see what he said. Um, so
Nice.
what are your thoughts on what Nelson is saying here?
So basically, Victor Nelson was a project player. Gala bought him. He was a young player, strong, Danish player who was going to play in defense. They brought him after sending Marcao to Sevilla. People were iffy about him. They want to be a big name whoever comes to the club. Iffy, it took time for him to obviously get used to the club. And then not only did they bring Nelson, but they also got Abdul Kerim as well. So both centre backs in the team were actually new players that they haven't played together. But then you saw Abdul Kerim step it up, Nelson step it up. They both did very well. Now Nelson became irreplaceable. Nelson also became the player that was supposed to be sold for a bunch of million euros in the transfer season during summer. But what Okan Buruk did is he wanted to keep his players, the skeleton of the team together. He didn't let them go. He didn't let Nelson go as well. The reason why Nelson didn't go is not because he wasn't supposed to go as well. It's because they didn't get a good enough offer for him. The offer they wanted was 25 and above. and I think they had offers, below that, below the even 20 million mark. I believe he's 23, so he's a promising player. So he thought he was going to get game time. He thought he was going to play. But you get Davinson Sanchez, and he does really well. He assists, he scores. He doesn't play the ball back to the keeper. We don't like that. We want to see Gala attacking.
Yeah, you
We
guys,
want
I'm
to
telling
see
you, man.
Gala
I'm telling you,
always
you
on the
guys have
offensive. We're
forgot
not a team
about Victor
to be
Nelson
defending.
already.
We need to win. We need to go forward.
I just want
We
to
need
read
to
what
go
he said.
forward. If you're passing the ball back to the keeper, you're taking the ball. It's not. Yeah. And then you got Sanchez to replace him. I think it wasn't hard to make that decision.
It wasn't hard to make that decision, but come end of last year, I mean, Nelson was the guy. Everybody loved him. It was 25 million euros were wanted, and la la la. Let's see
Yeah.
what he said. I couldn't read it. I want to read it. He said, "I was very upset that I didn't get to play in the Manchester United match. I felt disappointed. I would have liked to be in the starting 11, but I wasn't. I was very surprised, angry, and exhausted. I have 3 years left on my contract, but I don't think I'll extend it for another year. I live in Istanbul to play football, and if I don't play, I'll have to find somewhere else. I don't like sitting on the bench." So Nelson's saying he's here to play, and he's also basically, in my opinion, saying with this statement that if you're not going to play me, I'm going to say things and do things that are going to make my teammates unhappy. Because if I was any player in Galatasaray and saw this, you know, you can't say this. You just can't, because if you're not playing, it's not like the team's 10 men. Somebody is playing in your place, regardless of if he's playing better or not, which he is. But regardless of that, it's very disrespectful for your teammates to say, I'm here to
Yeah.
play, you can't bench me, this and that, especially after this year's performance where, I mean, Nelson's not had a single good game this year, in my opinion. I was never a big fan of his defending, to be honest. I always thought he was overrated. I still think he's overrated. But, you know, he's had good games in the previous years. This year, none. And it seems like the only problem at Galatasaray is Nelson. But let's see what do you think Okan's going to do with this? Like, how do you approach this if you're Okan Buruk? Because this is a problem that can grow out of hand.
Now look, Nelson, Sanchez, Zaha. These are all players. These are all players that are. They're not bigger than the team. They're not bigger than the club. They're not bigger than the coach, right? I was actually surprised that Nelson came out and said these things publicly. Uh, this is a professional environment. It's your job. There's no need to come out and talk bad about uh, your position, regardless of how you're feeling about it, because it affects the team, it affects the coach, it affects the players. So we look at what Okan Buruk is trying to do here. Before Nelson talks, like you need to talk about Kerem, right? Kerem has been displaced from where he plays and where he's assisted 20 odd goals because of Zaha. Now, Gala came out of their skin last year with a new team. They did well. They did very well in the league. But this year, you're playing in the European League, you're playing in the Turkish League, and you're going to eventually play for the Turkish Cup as well. So what Okan is doing, he's actually stepping up his game in terms of players and how they play and how they manage and how they work with his tactics, which again, Gala doesn't defend, Gala attacks. We know this is the mentality of the team. This is what the fans want to see. We saw this with Fatih Terim, and now we're seeing that with Okan Buruk. It's pretty much saying, hey, if you don't do well enough, I will replace you. And this doesn't mean, Victor Nelson is the only person. We had Yusuf Sarı. He was really well. He was doing really good in Adana. He came to Gala. He didn't do well. See you later. We had, the other player in the middle. He did well,
Emir
but the fans
Akbaba.
didn't want him to stay, so he left as well. Now, Emre Akbaba, and then you got other players that came, the Turkish promising young players, they came and played, and then they left. So Nelson, as you mentioned, wasn't doing well this year. Didn't do good at the start. I don't think he should have played against Manchester United because he wasn't doing well. When you had Sanchez making such an impact on the game from his first game, played really well against Manchester. He passed the ball to Zaha, he assisted, and there you go.
But what does
Sanchez made
Okan
his
Buruk do
difference,
here?
and
Like, what
I
is
think
Okan's
Nelson
approach, Oz?
can
What
keep
would you
talking.
what should his approach be?
Okan's approach is going to be telling Nelson that look, we have this Turkish uh, players rule in the league. You can only play. You have to play a minimum of three players. Our keeper is not Turkish, so we have to rotate between either defense or midfield. You're not gonna put Icardi on the bench, so you have to play someone from the Turkish nationality. In this case, Abdul Kerim, and then you've got Nelson there who has to work hard. He'll get time. He's going to get time. There's going to be a lot of games, but he needs to do well. See, it's two-sided. At the same time, Nelson has to play for him to be sold at these 20 million euro marks because people have to see what he plays like, right? And I think he needs to play. What I'm thinking is if we can win another game in the Champions League, maybe he'll play again. But I think at this stage, Sanchez, it'll be crazy to put Sanchez back on the bench and put Nelson back on. And if he's not happy, I think that's going to be shown on the pitch as well. And I don't think it's going to be very very healthy going forward.
It's a problem, man, because you also not only do you need to sell Nelson, but you need him as well. If someone gets injured, this and that, anything can happen.
Yeah,
But what he's done is I feel like he's also measuring like the club's reaction. Let's see what the club's gonna do. Are they gonna punish me, or are they actually gonna start playing me? But with the performance Sanchez is bringing in, Nelson is not cutting Sanchez. And when it comes to Abdülkerim, don't be fair, man. You said like obviously you can't you have this Turkish rule thing, but even if you didn't have this Turkish rule thing, if Abdülkerim was, I don't know, if he was a French citizen, he'd still play over Nelson. He'd
yeah,
still play over Nelson. Like the
he would.
fact of
Yeah,
the matter is,
definitely,
Nelson just needs to realize that
definitely.
this is the duo, and he's the backup. And I think Galatasaray will, if they get like a 15 million euro offer, mid season, they'll want to get rid of Nelson just so they can buy someone who will happily sit at the bench. And that being said, there's a lot to talk about with Galatasaray, man. Nelson was one of them. Team's getting better day by day, despite Nelson's, weird
I'm
statement.
always down to talk about Gala, mate.
Right, and I saved the Derby talk for the Galatasaray segment because it's at your house. We're playing at Rams Park Stadium. And right off the back of this national break, there's a there's a Galatasaray versus Besiktas game. And these games, this is an Istanbul derby, you know. Any game
Yes.
between Besiktas, Fenerbahce, and Galatasaray it's like that day is like life stops that night in Turkey. So both teams are preparing for a big derby. I can see, that smirk on your face. You're happy, your team's doing good. You think you're going to win. And Besiktas, on paper, it looks like we're going to lose, but a derby is a derby. I'll start with your opinions on the derby. What are you expecting?
Yeah. Look, I love these games, right? When the fixture's called and the league, everyone goes through what team is playing when and when are they actually playing each other. So seeing Beşiktaş and Gala this early on in the season to be going against each other is going to be really exciting to see, especially after a national break. You miss 2 weeks of of football, so you really want to get back into it. This is going to be uh, a game that Gala has to win, as every game, but it's more important because it's against Besiktas. It could literally put them out of the race this year, but also as motivation for the European game that's coming up. Now, on paper, yes, it looks like Gala will beat Besiktas, but this is also Besiktas's big chance, to be able to win against Galatasaray, who's most likely going to be, either first or second, hopefully first, but come end of the year. These 3 points against each other, they really matter when it comes down to the numbers game and how you calculate things and everything. So I think Besiktas will go out with everything they have. Gala will be there. They'll show up. The fans will show up. The team will show up, except Nasson, I think. Everyone will show up, and
Yeah,
it'll be a really great game to watch. And
I
I wouldn't be
wanna
surprised if Besiktas take a point. I don't
I
think
wanna
they'll
I
be
wanna
beating
talk
us, but
tactics actually. I wanna talk a bit of
it'll be
tactics. So
interesting to
like
see.
so I've been thinking about this, this is the life of a Besiktas fan. You put your head on a pillow and you think, what are we gonna do next game? What are we playing? Who's playing? What's the gameplay? You play that game in your head even as a fan. And when I play this game in my head, this Galatasaray versus Besiktas game, these two squads, these two games, these two teams with
Do you
what
have a
they've
game?
done
Do you
so
have a
far this
coach
year.
when you're playing the game in your head?
I'm the coach when I'm playing the game. The only way, but what I want to say is the only way I see Besiktas actually scoring on Galatasaray, within gameplay. Obviously you can score from a corner, a free kick, or maybe your goalie will make a mistake, a bad pass. These can happen, but in terms of scoring
Sure.
according to the plan, I think the only plan Besiktas can have is Besiktas has Gezal, great left foot. Not a very pacey player, but a great left foot, and then you've got Rashica, who's a pacey player. He's actually not, but on our squad he is. You put Rashica on the left, you put Gezal on the right, and if Gezal can, get that ball to Rashica, behind that Galatasaray line, which will most likely be playing deep, that's the only way we start, becoming dangerous. You fall in behind with Rashica, you find Rashica, he gets the ball. Maybe he finds Abubakar, maybe he scores himself, maybe he finds somebody else. But other than that, I don't see, Besiktas a game play for Besiktas. Whereas for Galatasaray, there's so many options. You've got a very strong midfield. You've got great wingers. You've got I still think our striker is much better than yours, but it's a big statement, I'm aware. But besides the striking department,
Ah,
yeah, we're gonna fall very far back, maybe, in terms of quality of the player. But like you said, it's a derby. You never know with these games. Like in
yeah,
Turkey, a derby, it doesn't matter how good a team is
exactly
doing,
right.
how bad as the team is doing. Like a derby is just like it's just as valuable as that trophy at come end of the season. So it's one to watch. I actually remember you guys losing 6-0 to Fener one year, and that year Fener finished like 10th, where Galatasaray finished second. So these derbies are very unpredictable.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hopes, man. Like that's the only way I see Besiktas scoring. Is there anything you want to add about tactics with Galatasaray?
Um, Gala will go out and play the game they normally play. I think it's Besiktas who has to adjust if they want to win the game. They haven't lost, I think, a game in 40 matches or something uh, with the current team and the coach. So it's going to be hard to beat this Gala at home. If you're expecting something from Rashica, I don't think he's going to get the chance. The fans won't let him. Yeah, he'll have an impact on the game because he wants to prove something, but um, it's going to be unlikely that he wins the game for Besiktas. Having said that, I'll probably be jinxing it and he'll probably end up scoring 2 goals, but we'll see how that goes.
That'll be a nice clip
But
up
it's
for us if
again,
that
it's going to
happens.
be very interesting to see. Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
But yeah,
Moving on,
we'll
man.
see how
Let's
it
let's move
goes.
on
It'll
to.
be live, I hope. Or
Yep.
yeah,
Let's move on to Fenerbahce. We always end up talking about them last, but that will not always be the case. Mark my words. Fenerbahce this year. Fenerbahce are on fire,
Yeah.
man. Like, they are on fire. They're doing great. They started very strong, getting better every day, just like Galatasaray, and their transfers have fit in. They fit in. They don't have. They're not waiting on anybody to, get better or get in that physical shape or is he gonna work or not. They all work perfectly fine. And I personally, I credit Ismail Kartal 95% for this success. Like 95% of this success at Fenerbahce that's happening today, in my opinion, is the success brought to the club by Ismail Kartal. And I'll talk about why I'm saying that, but I want to hear your thoughts first. What do you think about Fenerbahce and Ismail Kartal's performance?
I'm not complaining about Fenerbahce always being spoken about last. I'm not ashamed to say that. I'd like to see them last. Um, Having said that, they are doing really well. They are doing amazingly well this year. They have won everything. Whatever they played, they've won. Ismail Kartal has had a very good impact on the team. The players they've signed, they've actually come together really well. They're good players, they're well-known players, they're players for the fans as well. So Ismail Kartal, the coach, on his term, I believe, is doing really well. Uh, we will see how they do against, I don't want to say bigger opponents, but they've been playing with, the sort of mid-table to low-table teams in the league, and everyone knows about their European group opponents. So they're doing really well. They do this every year. There's a saying, it's a bit of a joke about Fener, how they start the thing well. The first few weeks is like, we're champions, and then the first third is more like, with they start talking about the refs, and then it's the coach, and then it's the federation, and then it's the whole unit in the committee that president needs to go. So let's see how they go. It's a good start, like they usually do. I think this is going to be better than last year in terms of George Jesus because of how he's doing with the team. He George Jesus, he tried to play his own team, own game, but Ismail Kartal will have more credit with the fans. He's not going to be as hard-headed as Jesus was, and let's see how it goes. But I think Ismail Kartal is going to do well, and it's going to be good to see that with Besiktas dropping out of the competition, seeing Fenerbahce be stronger is really going to make the league more interesting as well.
I wanna talk about Ismail Kartal a bit because I think he deserves it, man. I think he deserves it, not just because of what he's achieved so far with Fenerbahce, but if we go into his backstory, I'll be a bit of a Fenerbahce fan here because we kind of have to. If we go into Ismail Kartal's backstory, he was a legendary player at the club. Okay, no problem. You're a good player doesn't mean you're going to be a good coach. But he was the Fener coach twice before this, and both times it was just like he was brought in charge disrespectfully, in my opinion. He was brought in charge in a way of like, all right, we couldn't find anyone, fine, it's you
Yeah,
know. And the first time it was like, oh, you were the assistant coach for our previous coach, so fine, you do it. And then the second time they actually brought him in when the club was doing very bad, very, very bad. And they brought him in exactly because of the reason I said. They said, we couldn't find anyone and we're going to fire the new guy come end of season. So we need someone for till the end of the season. So they brought him and he actually carried that team up to second place, you know, in the year that Trabzonspor ended up being champions. And then he was fired, just as planned. And George Jesus was brought in because they were like, okay, Jesus is a bigger name. Ismail Kartal, yeah, he's a
yeah,
Fener fan. He's a good coach. But, we've got bigger visions and bigger ideas for Fenerbahce. That's what the Fenerbahce chairman was saying back then. And this was just a year ago, interesting, ironically enough. And come end of season last year, Jesus failed miserably. Miserably. Not only did he fail, but he disrespected Fenerbahce on so many levels last year. He didn't care about the club. He didn't care about the position. He was. We know from news reports that he was getting into disrespectful arguments with the chairman. He was talking to Brazilian TV while he was coaching Fenerbahce, saying, "Just wait for me, guys. I'm going to get rid of this team soon," and stuff like that. And I personally don't think he's a great coach anyway. He's a very
That was so funny.
successful, unsuccessful coach. When someone's success is he played a final, for me that's a failure. If you come up to the level of playing a final, you win it, then you're successful. If you don't win it, don't. You're not unsuccessful, but you can't claim success if you've lost it. And his big story of coming to Fenerbahce was, oh, he lost the UEFA League and the Portuguese League in the same week. He could have won them both, but he lost them both. This is how do you promote you?
Yeah,
This is a very good. He's got very good PR. Like you can't promote yourself with your losses, but he has to Fenerbahce. So Ismail Kartal was disrespected last year, the year before that, and this year. There was a big debate. Who do we bring? Should it be Ismail? Can he do it? Can he not do it? And then he came. He started succeeding. He started succeeding even more. And what now the media is saying, oh, this team is so good, anybody can do it. No, mate. Like if a team has won every single game they've played, not everybody can do it. And Fenerbahce has had the same chairman for the last 6 years. Very rich guy. Every year he buys at least 10, 11 players. Every year he also sells quite a lot of
yes,
players, to
yes,
be
yes.
fair to him. But, you know, every single coach that Fenerbahce had starting the season in the last 5 years were able to buy whoever they wanted. Jesus got whoever he wanted. Philip Koku was there. He got whoever he wanted. Erol Bulut was there. He got whoever he wanted. He even got Mesut Özil. Vitor Pereira was there. He got whoever he wanted. And Ismail Kartal is now here, and he got whoever he wanted, just like everybody else. And he is succeeding. It's not this team would succeed regardless of who. This is definitely Ismail Kartal's success, and I would like to congratulate him as a Besiktas fan who thought he'd fail, to be honest. And before we finish up, I just want to talk about Fenerbahce's chances of
Yeah.
winning the Conference League, man, because I don't want to talk about their group because obviously they're going to get out of that group. It's a bunch of nobodies in the group. But do you think Fenerbahce can actually win that Conference League?
Um, I think they can. Look, to be honest, I haven't even looked into the Conference League and who plays in that league uh, and whatnot. But I think Fenerbahce has the team, the depth, the coach now to win the actual thing. So if they were to win it, it'll feel like a European Championship for Fenerbahce fans, and I think they won't stop hearing them talk about it for the next 20 years. So having that bad track record of games in the league and how they were going, I think it's
We lost Oz. That's a technical difficulty. We lost those, but we were talking about Fenerbahce's chance, with winning the Conference League, and I'll pick up from where he left off. He kind of disrespected the league by saying that he didn't even look at who was playing in it. But and yeah, there are quite a lot of weird teams in the Conference League, which is why that brings the question, can Fenerbahce win the Conference League? And to me, I feel like they're definitely the strongest candidate alongside Aston Villa and Besiktas if things pick up. So I feel with the amount of performance Fenerbahce has shown, with the level of depth the squad has, with what the new coach has brought into the team, with the game they're actually playing, with the level of fans they have, I think Fenerbahce are definitely this year's uh, favorites for winning the Europa Conference League, and hopefully they do. Hopefully Besiktas wins, but If not, I would not mind seeing Fenerbahce lift that trophy as well. And we'll call it a day for now. We'll be back doing a lot of posts, a lot of lives as of the derby. We're very slow currently, still in the process of setting things up, and figuring things out. But come next week, and once the Trendyol Superlig is resumed again, we will be live after every game. We will be following Galatasaray's Champions League journey. Bayern Munich are coming to Istanbul in about 10 days' time, so there's a lot to talk about. So please stay tuned and give us a follow so you can be updated, man. Stay safe.